they want the authority to change coordinators under them. They have that authority, but they want to go into the website and make the change. We can't allow them to do that. If we let somebody into our server, we pay a lot of money, and everything we've ever done over the years is on our servers down in Texas, and they're backed up. We just can't allow anybody to access get into our server and all our source code. Just press a button and we're out of business. I mean, everything is shut down. So we just can't allow them in. So if anybody, like we find this fellow, Tom Roberts, if he's not around and he's not effective, and somebody else, but it's the state coordinator, and above him the regional coordinator, all they have to do is tell us, take this person out and put this other person in, and it's done. Yes?
Just on the other devil's advocate side of things, how do you get these people to the table? I mean, you're obviously done a well job pointing out the problems of the erosion of freedoms, but when they're still continuing to do it, and they're going to continue to do it, how do you stop the bleeding?
What do we do?
What must the free people do? I know what I'm going to do, and I know what you ought to do, but that's going to have to be your personal decision.
Sorry, what are you going to do?
Yeah, what if we don't have a clue? What if we don't have a gun?
What are you going to do?
Go to the website.
You get the bumper sticker.
I got the answer.
What are
Yes.
you going
I
to
got
do?
the answer to your problem.
I want this question to ferment, and out of this will come, a solution. I know what I'm going to do.
Civil disobedience.
The answer to your problem
No, hold it.
is
It's
very
not, hold it.
obvious. It's very
It's not
obvious.
civil disobedience. It might be civil action. We're not being disobedient, the government is. It's civil obedience. Sorry.
But
Go
the
ahead.
Government takes action that it's not allowed to do.
Hold on. We got a hand up here.
Isn't that criminal?
The key is very
The
simple.
question is, what are we going to do? We're not going to engage in civil
Well, I'm
disobedience.
happy to talk about that.
We're not going to engage in civil disobedience. Do we agree?
I've got something beyond civil disobedience.
All right, hold it. But the question is, we're not going to engage in civil disobedience because we're not going to be disobedient. We're going to be obedient. Yes?
The key is very simple. Marketing. If you got a top marketing guy, you can sell refrigerators to Eskimos. If you got a marketing guy, if the people hear about this, then your solution, there's a solution.
That's what the government does to us, they PR us.
It's that simple. If you got a key marketing guy and treat him right and give him the resources, the word will get out. That you can't help but get it. What about the milk guy? Look at what he did. He did it alone.
I can tell you since
If you're a threat,
since last Sunday when I talked about this in Concord, now this, and I've got requests. I mean, I'll be in Texas, all over Texas, Wisconsin, Michigan, Los Angeles. These requests are coming in. I can just do so much. I want this PowerPoint to get out there and speak, for me in that regard. But it's going to take organization, power, and money. That's what we need.
But you get the money from marketing.
Yes. That's a great project, and you're in charge.
I hope you mean that.
I mean it.
If you mean that, then I got nothing else to do.
All right. I mean that. People who know me and have heard me talk over the years, I do the same thing. When I hear a good idea, I say, that's a great idea, you're in charge. You're the project manager.
You're going to have to come up to New Hampshire once in a while and see me. It's under 6 feet of snow right now.
I get to New Hampshire regularly. I don't live far away. I'm just on the New York side of the Vermont border on Route 4.
I'll find your marketing guy for you. I'll make sure it works.
Okay.
So, Bob, what are you going to do?
All right. Rich?
let it ferment.
Okay, all right, here you go. What's that gentleman's name over there with the New Hampshire?
My name is Richard Armstrong.
Hi, Rich, my name is Rich Campbell. I couldn't agree with you more, by the way.
Thank you.
I got into this thing by accident and then intensely because of this guy at the podium in 2003 when I first met him. And my background is all marketing and sales, and I said, this is not going to work its way through the courts, it's got to be through marketing. Now, he's made the statement, it's almost like he's shilling for me. You and I are going to talk later about maybe an hour. However, I believe I may have a gift to the needs that you've expressed up here. The need you have is to galvanize people, and not just those broke people, and not all of us are broke. I happen to be broke. Richard may be broke, I don't know.
Where are the barons?
But I've been to many of these meetings, and wonderful people, but I haven't met wealthy millionaires. A few of them have spoken, and I think they've been attacked.
The barons.
The barons are gone,
The accomplished
by
people.
design. Now, if you take a look around and split the world, as we know it in the United States, into two categories, those of us that are aware, and those of us who are outside and hear about it but don't care, we usually don't pay taxes. We're not part of the system. We're not filing 1040s. They do. The goal is to get them on this side of the fence. I have a gift. I may have a gift. I've spent 5 years intensely researching. Half the summer of '05 with you up in the archives in Washington, College Park, which was very productive in many ways. How many of you know about the Grace Commission?
Yeah.
How many of you know that Peter Grace said to Reagan, 1981, virtually all of the taxes that are left over after anything are only paying the interest on the national debt?
Yep. I know that.
How many of you are aware of that?
That's not quite what you
Virtually
said.
nothing that we pay as taxes goes anyplace except to the national debt.
Federal Reserve Act.
How do you pay national debt interest?
You know.
Income taxes, that's off of the sweat of your back. Oh, you're not paying 1040s. Oh, you're not doing it. But those millions of people on the other side of this line are filing 1040s. Watch, stay with me. In 1933, in June, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, one of the slimiest animals that's ever been on the political scene, gave a gift. He gave a gift to the people who bankrupted this nation. In June of 1933, he gave them a tax exemption and didn't put it in Title 26. I found it 3 years ago, and I didn't know how powerful it was. He gave them something that they buried over in Title 12 in the banking statutes. Title 12, Section 531. You're going to love this. Those tens of millions of people who are paying taxes are paying them in up until about 1992 when I did my 941s. I used to pay it at the collection depot at the local bank. It went on a coupon, on a 941 coupon. It was harvested by the bank. Now they've shifted it and it goes to the Treasury. But these people over here, when they pay their IRS taxes, it goes into the system and it pays interest. The interest, although statutorily limited to somewhere in the neighborhood of about $300 billion a year today, that interest is a one-liner in Title 12, Section 531. All profits and surplus paid against the common Class A common shares to the owners of the Federal Reserve are statutorily exempt from federal, from state, and municipal taxation. Every single dollar that these people pay that becomes an interest payment against the national debt goes to the owners of the Federal Reserve, whether it be the participating banks or the Class A common owners, statutorily tax-free. But wait, you have no idea what else they did. If you are one of the owners of the Federal Reserve, and last year you collected, let's say your share was $37 billion. You got that statutorily tax-free because on your tax return you can say it was earned according to Title 12, Section 531. No one gets to see your tax return. The IRS receives it and says, oh, check that off. He's okay. No tax against that $33 billion. It gets better. And what's the 16th Amendment say? And all the income derived therefrom. In Title 12, Section 531, if you took that $33 billion and you liked St. Petersburg so much you bought every commercial building in St. Petersburg, every bit of rent and profit going forward into the entire future, and this is not made up, I've had lawyers, I've had it vetted, it's proven, every dollar earned from owning the buildings in St. Petersburg is also federal, statutorily tax-free. That's it, I'm finished.
Okay.
But that one issue,
I think you
the
need to have a
marketing
seminar
program
after
can
this.
galvanize
Rich.
those people that come on this side of the line.
It's gone right over our heads. Sorry.
I'd love you to do your own seminar after this for sure, man.
Did?
We'll get get into it, but
The owners of the Fed take your tax money and
Let's
they
do it after
charge it
this.
tax-free.
It might go over anybody's head.
Thanks,
We
man.
agree with you, we like it, later.
Thanks, man.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions? Let's try to,
Still for,
so this is the plan. Do we put these signatures up, and do we all do what we can to get these petitions up, and do we all do what we can to get people to sign them?
yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Do we serve them? Do we have at least 1 or 2 or 3 people from every congressional district formally serving them on every member of Congress and the President and the Attorney General, where the person receiving them, somebody in their office signs they received it. So it's a very formal process. Do we do that? All right.
Haven't we already
Then-
done that?
In small numbers. We're now talking about something much, much larger with a demand. And the demand, I'll have to figure this out, but the demand is either everybody responds, or we're at a certain place and they send a representative. But I think it's almost better to have them, that we want them to put together a team of experts on every one of these issues and to respond by a certain time at a recorded public forum that we'll arrange, and they'll either agree to respond or they won't. They probably won't. So the next, yes, Jude?
They're going to need some of these tables and chairs for the party outside.
Okay, well,
Which is 4 o'clock.
it'll be soon. Okay. Thanks, Jude. And so the next question is, what if they don't respond? What does a free people do? And again, I hear you. You're trying to find out what I'm going to do. I want your decision, though, not based on what I'm going to do. I mean, that'll come out eventually. It'll be nonviolent. What I do will be nonviolent. And I'll be standing on, well.
Will you announce something sometime?
Yeah, but I want, this is an important issue. You personally have to wrestle, with your creator, your conscience. And you've got to, here's what I hope will come out of this, Kevin. Here's what I hope will come out of this. A lot more people will understand the significance of the original intent behind those 10 words, and will have gone through the process of actually taking a current problem that we have in the country today, like Iraq, like the Federal Reserve, whatever, and relating it, as these petitions do, to specific provisions of the Constitution, seeing for themselves, that there's a constitutional violation here. And then going through learning what the First Amendment's all about and claiming and exercising their right under that petition clause. A lot of people won't understand the minutia of the Federal Reserve or the tax. You start throwing articles and sections out. Most people, aren't going to understand the minutia of the tax code. One thing most people will understand, and the marketing people that we come up with, the PR people, this is what they'll probably focus on. This is the heart of the message. Most people will understand that when you ask your government some questions, you should get an answer. That seems axiomatic, right?
Yeah.
So, the question then becomes, what if they don't? And hopefully, over the rest of this year, to June and beyond, a lot of people will be participating, and we'll try to get USA Today. It's going to take a lot of people passing the word. None of us has, the barons aren't there. We're going to try to attract. I'm going to be asking this question wherever I go. Where are the barons? Where are the accomplished people? It was the barons that did that at Runnymede. It was the barons that did that in our country. The Jeffersons and the Washingtons and the Madisons. These were accomplished people. These were people with a lot to lose that led the revolution. They were the leaders. Where are the barons today? Where are the businessmen and the accomplished people? See, we need them. And we have a few of them, but hopefully we'll do this right in such a way that they all start coming out of their comfort zones. Yes?
I think the barons have been gobbled up by the right-left moderate paradigm.
Yeah.
anti-gun march, if 1 million people showed up in Washington carrying their grandfather's shotgun on their shoulder, we'd get there.
Remember, Posse Comitatus has been done away with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And they joined the Canadian military.
yeah.
There's nice that they'll implement.
Remember, we can't, look, these are all, it's fermenting, right?
Yeah.
These are all ideas that you have to think about. And you don't want to make it easy for people to paint you with any kind of particular brush, right? So it's one thing to have, a modern, firearm. It's something else to have an old relic, but you can, because you, or maybe just pitchforks. I mean, you got to send a message. They had pitchforks at Runnymede, by the way. And so these are all good ideas. We need to hear more, and you need to be thinking about these things. Yes?
Yeah, Bob, I'm just curious about, like, the North American Union. President Bush has been pushing this since March of 2005. And to me, I think it's a violation of his oath of office. So, it's really Congress's duty to hold him accountable. He's doing away with the sovereignty of the nation.
Well, there's not it's not a dime's worth of difference between the two major parties, I'm afraid. I mean, they're both, they work together, and they're not going to go too far. Yes?
Did the founders just completely drop the ball and not leave any way that the people could make sure the founders would follow the law?
No, it's the First Amendment, and it's your right to retain your money until your grievances are redressed. It's
Okay,
the right, it's
but
the right to withdraw your allegiance.
Isn't there more to the petition for redress of grievances than simply asking them questions? Because actually, there's a Supreme Court case from 1871 where Justice Joseph Bradley says, and one of the things, first of all, I've read the research you've done, and you're exactly right. Okay, so there's a foundation for sending a petition to government and having them answer it. But there's more to the petition for redress of grievances than just that. Okay? The petition for redress of grievances gives you the ability to take civil action in a court of law against people. It also gives you the ability to go to a grand jury and say, this criminal conduct occurred. Then the grand jury can indict or choose not to indict. And actually, in Blyeu versus U.S., Supreme Court Justice Joseph Bradley said that the right enjoyed by every citizen of entering a complaint before a magistrate or the grand jury and of appearing as a witness on the trial of the defender is a fundamental right. And he says, right, for it is a right, an inestimable right, that of invoking the penalties of the law upon those who criminally or feloniously attack our persons or property. Civil society has deprived us of the natural right of avenging ourselves, but it has preserved to us all the more jealously the right of bringing the offender to justice. By the common law of England, the injured party was the actual prosecutor of criminal offenses. And that was the way it happened during the first about 6-7 decades of our country. There was no such thing as a U.S. attorney. There was no such thing as a prosecuting attorney when our Constitution was ratified. If your cattle were stolen, you went down, you asked the clerk of court when a grand jury would be summoned. They summoned the grand jury. You presented the evidence regarding your cattle being stolen to the grand jury. And if you could convince the grand jury that a crime had been committed against you by a particular person, they voted. If a supermajority of them voted to issue an indictment, then an indictment was issued. The magistrate had to issue an arrest warrant. The warrant had to be served by law enforcement, and that's how criminal charges began. And when our government ignores the law, they take action either contrary to the law or outside of their power, they have just committed a felony. Okay? They've taken action under color of law that they aren't allowed to do. Right? That's a felony. So we should be able to go petition the grand jury for a redress of those criminal grievances. However, in 1946, Congress passed the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, which said, for the first time in history, only the U.S. Attorney may present evidence to a federal grand jury. Now, which is supposed to control here? A rule of criminal procedure or the constitutional right? As, once again, mentioned and clearly specified in a U.S. Supreme Court decision. So there are ways. Now, some states still give you an ability to go right into the grand jury. Okay? Because once again, this is a right that comes from the founding of our country.
Is Florida one of them?
No. Florida is a vague state. Actually, there's a little bit of wiggle room in Florida. So what I'm proposing is that people need to find evidence of criminal conduct and put together a package and try and get it into the grand jury. This is happening in Texas. Texas is a better state for getting to a grand jury than most. But I'm working on something for Florida right now that's specific to Florida. And I think I saw Bob Hurt here earlier. He knows about something else going on in Florida. And actually, I see other people in the room that have evidence of criminal conduct committed by government in Florida that could be prosecuted by presenting that evidence to a grand jury in Florida. So, I mean, I think that's something that you have to add to...
Right. Mark, he's got an excellent point. And if you get blocked, if you're not allowed access to the grand jury, the U.S. Attorney or whoever blocks you from getting there, clearly then, as Mark says, there's a conflict between the law and the Constitution. And we know that any law that is repugnant to the Constitution is null and void. You cannot have a law that is repugnant to the Constitution. So Mark is saying this law that prohibits, the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, that prohibit people from going directly to the grand jury, that's unconstitutional. And so you can take that to court, or that becomes the subject matter for yet another petition for redress of grievances. Our access to the grand juries, whenever we think there's to present alleged crimes to be investigated, should they decide there's enough evidence for an investigation, that's, according to Mark, that's a fundamental natural right that's being denied us. And so that becomes yet another petition for redress of grievances, in addition to whatever else might be going on to protect that right or to claim and exercise that right in these states like Florida, where maybe you still have a shot to do it, you know, where they haven't quite denied you fully.
Right,
so,
let me give you one more quote from this case from Justice Bradley. He says to deprive a whole class of the community of this right, once again, to present evidence of criminal conduct to a grand jury, to refuse their evidence and their sworn complaints is to brand them with a badge of slavery. Okay, he's saying if you don't have the right to make the government follow the law by going to other citizens on the grand jury, then you are no longer a sovereign anymore. You're no longer a citizen. You're a slave.
What case was this?
This is Blyew, that's B-L-Y-E-W, versus U.S. It's 80 U.S. 581. And the good stuff is in the dissenting opinion by Justice Brown.
What year was that?
1871.
notice he says dissenting opinion. I mean, it's significant, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it was a right and it was practiced at the time of the adoption of our founding documents, and it's being taken away from us, or they're attempting to. Yes?
Is there a grand jury in Washington, D.C. where you could go on those four that they failed to answer, take the 9 Supreme Court justices in front of that grand jury and have them all down there?
No, we call them downhill.
I don't know if there is a grand jury in D.C. It's a good question.
Well, there's a federal grand jury in D.C., so you're under the federal rules. But you see, these types of things that affect, say for instance, the going to war in Iraq. Let's use that as an example, okay? The Constitution clearly says Congress is the only one that can declare war. So the people who sent the troops over to Iraq without a declaration of war, that would be the commander-in-chief, correct? He just took an action under the color of law that he's not allowed to do under the Constitution. So that's a felony, and that affects everyone in America. So whoever has evidence of that can go get it to a grand jury. And Texas actually is, there's a group, I'm a weekly guest on a radio show on Thursday nights. It's called The Rule of Law Show. It's on from 9 to 11. It's on We the People Radio Network. And it's hosted by Randy Kelton and Deborah Stevens out of Texas. They're working on taking evidence to the grand jury in Texas about a few things related to abuse of authority by our government.
Unfortunately, they're going to need these tables soon. I know they've got 300 people showing up at 5 o'clock at a pool party outside. So we're going to have to move along. But let me just sort of summarize this part of what we've heard here the last few minutes. There are this and there are other issues of alleged constitutional violations. These are not political policy issues that someone says, vote for me and I'll try to fix that. If it's a constitutional violation, then then we need to confront it, and it becomes yet a subject matter, fodder for yet another petition for redress of grievances. But we need to stay focused. I'm hoping we can stay focused on the right to petition and a three-part plan. And over time, as it ferments, the action part, the civic action part of this, will become clear to all of us, I'm sure. But for the time being, it's get these petitions signed electronically, and we'll get them served, and then we'll decide, what we're to do if they don't respond. But in the meantime, a lot of people are becoming educated and familiar with the right and the procedure.
The possibility that the judiciary is just as culpable and we are not addressing them?
No, we can petition them as well, but I mean, we see their culpability.
In your early successes, it was because the judiciary listened to you and gave you some credence to that. And only when you started having failures is when the judiciary was saying,
look, I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, I've had a lot of success in court. I'm not a lawyer, but this is what I've done for 29 years, and involving a lot of other people. There's 109 decisions in state cases and another 45 in federal. I've written the briefs, done the research, and argued the cases. But all of that experience has taught me, when you get too close to the heart of the money and the power issue, you lose. If you get too close, and that's what we're doing here. We're very close. I mean, this is the heart of their power, and they don't want to be held accountable. Can you imagine the floodgates? I mean, to get them back under control, can you imagine the floodgates? The Northwest Passage would be opened, and they would have to respond to these petitions and explain their behavior to the people? I don't know. All right, that symbol, by the way, is Unite and Die way back. See, those are the states. And it was a flag, and it was all around the colonies, and it was, we've got to pull together, we've got to unite, or we're not going to develop the thrust, to prevail here. And that's a scene out of V for Vendetta. You got to see the movie. You'll know what I'm talking about. But only you can set in motion everything that has to happen, to make the change that we're and to get the reform that we're entitled to. I mean, that's up to you. So I'll ask you the same question I asked in Concord. I assume from your reaction, the fact that you're still here, listening to all of this, that this is an important message that needs to get out, and we should continue. Hopefully you'll all download this PowerPoint presentation and present it to others. And I assume you'll want me to keep going around the country talking to other groups about this. Yes, ma'am.
Is it your intent to try and organize this as a June march on Washington?
Well, it's going to happen. If there is going to be a big march, I mean, Ron Paul is talking about a big, Constitution Day is June 21st. It's not a great day because it's a Saturday. And if you go to serve your congressman, there isn't going to be anybody in the office. So it would have to be done like on the 20th and then carry over on the 21st if Ron Paul is